What's up, everybody? This is Alex Christoforou with the Duran, and I'm here with Angela Merkel, editor-in-chief of the Duran. And today we're going to be talking about Emmanuel Macron's failed attempt to sabotage Nord Stream 2. Alexander, the emperor boy, Emmanuel Macron. He tried to sabotage Nord Stream 2, the pipeline Russia to Germany, and of course to the rest of Europe. What was Macron up to here? Why did he fail? What was his end game?
Well, what his end game was is incredibly complicated and not entirely clear even to me. But let's first of all start by saying what an absurd and bizarre idea this was. Now, Nord Stream 2 is this deal that the Germans have done with the Russians for a pipeline to be built across the Baltic, bringing natural gas, directly from Russia to Germany, which is going to make Germany a major European gas hub. Now, this is a project in which the Germans have invested a huge amount of money and time. It is largely completed. It is expected to come on stream and be completed by the end of this year. The US has campaigned against this pipeline because, first of all, it doesn't want Germany and Russia to forge too many economic links, and it also wants to stop Russian natural gas supplies to Europe because the United States, wants to increase its supplies. It's kind of logic to all of this, whether you agree with this US policy or not. There are also some European states, Poland, the Baltic states, and of course Ukraine, which oppose Nord Stream 2, because that will prevent Russian gas flowing across pipelines, flowing along pipelines across these countries to Germany, and that will reduce the transit fees that these countries charge for the gas that flows across their territories. The big loser here being Ukraine, which will see the flow of gas across its territory fall by something like 90%. So you can see why some European countries oppose it. You can see why the United States opposes it. France has no issue in this fight. France is not a transit state. France has very close relations with Germany. Germany is France's major ally within the European combine. Merkel and Macron are supposed to be friends. So for Macron to now turn round and go against this pipeline, which is such an important project for the Germans, and to line up with countries like the US, with which Germany at the moment has a bad relationship, and with all these Eastern European states, which Germany itself, by doing this deal with Russia, is trying to cut out, was incredibly stupid. And the stupidity of it was not just that it failed and failed completely, because essentially the Germans said to Macron, push off, but that it exposed his own weakness relative to the Germans and at the same time annoyed them at the very time when he wants to be on good terms with them. So why did he do it? I think the reason he did it is because he's trying at the moment, his latest project is to try to mobilize Atlanticist, integrationist, globalist opinion in Europe and to project himself as its leader. That opinion is very anti-Russian and therefore is very opposed to Nord Stream 2. So Macron, for that reason, made the extraordinary misjudgment of also opposing Nord Stream 2.
Can we summarize it as something akin to like Macron? Everyone knows Macron is a globalist puppet. So he's basically in France doing the bidding of the globalists, the integrationists, and all these guys that are giving him his marching orders. So can we say that Macron was just following orders by trying to derail the Nord Stream 2 project, get Russia out, consolidate Europe under the globalist integrationists' thumb, and he was just kind of following those orders?
Well, yes, he was following those orders, but he was also trying to do, I think, something even more ambitious. And it exposes the extent of his vanity, because I think he wasn't just following those orders. I think he wanted to follow those orders, partly because, of course, he is a globalist, integrationist, Atlanticist himself, but also because he crazily thinks he can lead this movement. He can't. He is not, in any conceivable sense, a leader. So he sets himself off on a limb. He goes off on a limb on these positions, and he ends up coming out badly. He's now got, as we know, a major crisis in France with the yellow vest protests, which are not going away and which will probably get bigger as the year progresses. And, of course, he's now made the Germans very angry with him. Not clever.
Not clever at all. So Nord Stream 2 now is a go. Nothing is going to derail it. Yeah. Is that correct?
No, absolutely. Nothing is going to derail it. I mean, the Germans are committed to it. What the Germans want in Europe, when the Germans and the Russians agree on something in Europe, it happens. They are the two, and if they agree on something, no combination of European states is going to prevent them doing it. The only situation where the Germans and the Russians will fail to get their way is if they actually disagree on something. Then there is always a clash. But if they agree on something, it happens. Even if the United States tries to put pressure on the Germans to change their minds. The Germans are utterly committed to Nord Stream 2. It would be a major political crisis in Germany if it were cancelled. German industry would be furious. Angela Merkel is not going to do it. So it's going to go ahead. There is no doubt about it now. I think this attempt by Macron to derail it was the last attempt, and it will be completed in a few months, and the gas will flow, and Ukraine will cease to be an important gas transit power. It will lose an awful lot of money as a result, and Germany will be consolidated as the major gas hub in Europe.
What about what role does the Turk Stream play in all of this compared to Nord Stream?
I mean, Turk Stream is actually extremely important because, of course, that's the other side of it. I mean, Turk Stream has given the Russians great leverage over the Germans because the Russians have been able to say to the Germans, look, if you don't want to go ahead with Nord Stream 2, well, we're also building this pipeline to Turkey, which we're going to extend through Bulgaria and Serbia, and they're absolutely signed up to it. So you will lose your position, your potential position as a major gas hub. So the Russians have played a pretty canny game on this. But, of course, though Nord Stream 2 is a critically important pipeline, so will Turk Stream 2 be, because the construction of both of these pipelines taken together will mean that the Russians will be sending gas through Northern Europe and through Southern Europe, and it's going to be very, very difficult indeed to challenge the dominant position of Russian gas on the European gas market when it is coming through those two pipelines from two different directions in such quantities.
And so now Macron has burned a bridge with Germany. Who the hell supports Macron at this point? His own people definitely don't. You know, his ratings are rock bottom. A lot of Europe is just turning away from him. Macron, to me, just seems so isolated that he has nowhere else to turn at all.
Yeah, I mean, the people who support Macron are those people who are still committed, and they are there, to the sort of globalist, Atlanticist, integrationist agenda that we've been talking about. I mean, Davos, the people who sort of meet every year in Davos, the Swiss mountain resort, they support him, and their newspapers, if you look at Le Monde or The Guardian, they still talk him up to the extent that they can. But the reality is, even these people are starting to have doubts about Macron because he is proving so incompetent. He is simply not able to execute on their project effectively. So when he became president of France, they had vast expectations of him. I think they're now realizing that he's just not able to do it. He just can't cut it for them. And I think that he's losing their support also. So he is looking increasingly isolated. And frankly, I think he's going to end up very soon like his predecessor, Hollande, who had very similar ideas and very similar policies, but who saw his popularity collapse into single figures and had become essentially, by the time he left office, almost a president in name rather than in fact. In Macron's case, I wonder whether he will even remain for very long a president in fact, because the mood in France is becoming so bad that I think it's possible that we will see big political changes in France, despite the fact that Macron's constitutional position is very strong.
What about the political actors who are vying for control of the presidency in France when the elections do come? The Marine Le Pens, for example, who have been very, very low key throughout the whole Yellow Vests protests. And now they see Macron not really handling his foreign policy well with other EU leaders, most notably Germany. What are the political powers inside of France calculating, you think, at this moment?
Well, I think that they're scenting blood, and I think they're going to let Macron continue to sort of lose popularity and lose support. Marine Le Pen has reorganized the party, and she's given it a new name. I think it's called the National Rally now or something like that. And on the left, there is this other potential challenger who's Jean-Luc Mélenchon. And I think that we will see a very different election in France next time round. The only question is, to my mind, when that election will be. Will Macron be able to hold on for much longer? A few months ago, if you'd asked me, I'd have said because of the political situation in France, he probably would. Now I'm becoming much less sure. And I think that if there's going to be an election in France soon, then that would be Marine Le Pen would look a very, very strong challenger indeed, a stronger challenger than she did last time.
Wow. Could you imagine Marine Le Pen taking over the helm of France? That would be stunning.
Well, that would be a revolutionary event. I mean, it would be a revolutionary event within France itself, and it would be a revolutionary event in Europe. I mean, the European Union could not exist in the form that it does now if Marine Le Pen became French president.
Is that a possibility? Is that really a possibility? Something like that could happen?
6 months ago, I would have said no. Now I say a conditional yes. The prospects of that are increasing by the week, by the month even. But, I mean, to be clear, she still has a mountain to climb. But it's becoming more likely now than I think it's ever been before.
All right. And finally, Alexander, how big of an energy power is Germany becoming now?
A very big energy power. I mean, I think we have to understand this. I mean, Europe's own natural gas production is falling fast. Europe used to produce quite a lot of its own natural gas in places like the Netherlands, in the North Sea and wherever. That is very heavily in decline. By contrast, Russia seems to have almost unlimited supplies of natural gas, and it can go on supplying natural gas at this rate and also supply natural gas to China at a similar rate for the foreseeable future. With Germany now cornering the market in a large proportion of that natural gas, Of course, as we've discussed, there will also be natural gas coming through Turk Stream. But Germany's position as the major natural gas hub in Northern Europe is going to become extremely strong. And the Germans will do two things. Firstly, they will accelerate the shift away within Germany from nuclear power and coal power for the for German industry. Natural gas is both cheaper and ecologically cleaner, so they want to do that. But as the major hub, they will also be able to control to a great extent how much gas and at what price other people get it throughout Europe. And
my mind just goes back to Ukraine. I mean, this really does pose a huge problem for Ukraine.
Well, it does. And I have to say, I have to make one point here, which is, I think, a very important point. Of course, the Germans always talk about the way they support Ukraine. And Germany was a leading supporter back in 2014 of the sanctions that were imposed on Russia over Ukraine. And the Germans still give, the German government, Merkel and company, still give an awful lot of, verbal support to Ukraine. In reality, they have completely, if you like, the Ukrainians would say, stabbed Ukraine in the back, because they've done this deal with the Russians, which is going to leave Ukraine in a desperate position. From 2020, when most of the natural gas will cease to flow through Ukraine anymore. It shows in reality what the Germans really think about Ukraine. They may give Ukraine all sorts of verbal support, but in reality, they have cut a deal with the Russians, which leaves Ukraine high and dry. And I think that with Nord Stream 2, underway, with Ukraine almost certainly facing deepening economic problems, it shows that German support for Ukraine isn't in reality worth anything.
Wow. All right. Alexander Mercouris, Editor-in-Chief of the Duran. Thank you very much. Guys, if you like this video, click on the subscribe button down below and click on that notifications bell to make sure you get notifications every time we push out a new video. Visit the Duran shop, pick up a t-shirt, help support the Duran. In the description box down below, you will find links to our PayPal and Patreon pages. Please donate to us. That really helps us out a lot. And you can get a copy of this show in video format. Follow us on iTunes and Soundcloud. Go to theduran.com and also see all the articles that Alexander links up to every day. Alexander Mercouris, Editor-in-Chief of the Duran. Thank you once again. Until next time, everybody, take care.